Hey everyone, welcome back to a whole new video. Welcome if you're new. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle, so welcome. And for my returning subscribers, my regulars, my day ones, thank you guys so much for tuning in and thank you so much for being here. People who are moving to Bermuda, you may have gotten an offer and you're just looking for information. I really do hope that this playlist will be very helpful to anyone that's moving to Bermuda and kind of just want an idea. Although everybody's experiences will be different, I really wanted to put out this information out in a playlist. I do get a lot of questions, like sometimes in my DMs, mainly in my emails, about like housing and just like what it's like. And so I was like, you know what, I really do need to be more intentional about putting out information based on if someone wants to come and live in Bermuda and just things to know before you actually move here. Also, I do believe anyone that's just moving across countries, these things would be things that you can mainly be mindful of and do a lot of research when you are moving to a whole new place. So with all of that being said, let's jump into this video. So the first thing to know when you are moving to Bermuda, which I think everyone knows, is how expensive it is. Everything is expensive. Like literally, when they say Bermuda is one of the most expensive places to live in the world, it is not false. They are not lying. All of the reviews, all of the things that people are saying about how expensive it is in fact very expensive. It's a small island, but it's an island that basically have to import mainly, like literally every single thing. And so I think that is why the cost of living is so high. And so when you are moving to Bermuda, you want to consider the cost of living. The rent is expensive, groceries, your utilities. I don't find the utilities to be too expensive, but when you convert it to, like, if you are someone that's moving from a place that's not like you're not spending in US or BMD, you may find it expensive. But for me, I find it very relative to especially electricity. I find it to be, once you don't do that conversion, I find it to not be bad. But that's just personally me, because I just find electricity currently is just really high all over. Maybe not in the US, but I just find electricity to be high. Even back home, I would hear people complain about how high the electricity bills are. So for me, I think that is something that is very, like, it depends on you as a person. But when you are moving here, you want to factor in all of those different costs, because of course you're gonna accept an offer or you're gonna come to a new country. You want to be able to still do the things that you did in your own country. You still want to be able to live. So that's definitely something that when you are moving to a new country, you want to consider. Now we're gonna get into housing. Housing is also something that you want to consider when you're moving here. Housing in Bermuda is not the same like across the world. When I got here and I realized how much I had to pay for a space, I was even shocked, because I'm just like, but my apartment where I used to live before, it was so much more nicer. I had a really nice view, it was spacious and all of that good stuff. Take that out of your mind. Take that out of your mind. Just take everything out of your mind. Like, especially when it comes to housing, take it out of your mind. I was very shocked. I was shook actually when I moved here and I saw like what I had to get for the cost that I had to pay for it. And in my previous video sometime in March, back way when I first moved here, I did do an apartment hunting video. I will leave it linked here up on the screen, and I'll also leave it in my description box below if you guys want to check that out. But that would basically give you an idea of the types of apartments and the costs associated with what a specific type of apartment would look like. I had my own apartment horrors and stuff like that, but definitely when you're moving here, housing is something that you definitely need to consider. And of course, you're moving to a new place and you have to live somewhere, but just be very mindful of how much you're going to spend. If you're willing to have a roommate, if you're willing to have if you're willing to live on your own, if it's going to be furnished or unfurnished, like stuff like that is very important. The area that you're going to live as well, how far it is away from your work, and like all of those things. So those are things that you definitely want to be mindful of. That you cannot move here without like a valid work permit. You can't just pick up and say, oh, I want to move to Bermuda. Like that is not something I think that that's a thing. You're definitely gonna have to make sure that you have work permit and also employment, because y'all are not gonna come and live under people and them for free. Like it doesn't work like that here. They are very, 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 very strict on having a work permit, it being valid. Majority of the times people that are moving here are expats that would have applied for jobs to come live here, and so of course they have to go through that work permit process, which is also a long process. So if you are if you have applied and got an offer from Bermuda and you haven't heard anything back in reference to your work permit, just be patient. It does take a while. It took me I think it took me a solid 3 months before I got approved for my work permit. And of course this is going through your employer. You can't, I don't believe you can just try to get a work permit in Bermuda without having an employment already, or without having like an offer letter or something like that. So that is how like it really works in reference to your work permit and also employment. And of course it has to be renewed periodically. So majority of the times I think the first work permit that you get it for about 3 years. Again, every industry is different. Also, when you are looking for jobs in Bermuda, you need to be mindful that majority of the jobs that you will get as an expat, it would be in finance, insurance, or maybe in the hospitality field or area. I think like that, those are the 3 main places you'd be able to find a job. The next thing that you want to note is your health care. So when you're moving to Bermuda, they are going to require you to have healthcare coverage, some sort of insurance. Now, I don't necessarily know, I can't tell you if the healthcare system is great. I've never had, God, thank you, I've never had a situation where I've had to go to the hospital or anything like that. Healthcare is also very expensive because majority of the places you are going to go is going to be clinics, and so and like I said earlier, I think it's a requirement by law for you to have healthcare coverage. So if it is that your employer is not offering you any sort of healthcare coverage, that may be something that you want to look into. Or if you're applying for a job, you've gotten an offer, that is something that you want to ask them for before you move to Bermuda. See what your healthcare coverage covers and stuff like that. So that is definitely something that I would recommend, because of course you don't want to be going out of pocket, because it's going to be very expensive for you to go out of pocket to go to the doctor. If you need to go to a doctor visit or what have you, it is going to cost you a lot of money. The next thing you want to know is the climate and the weather, and this one took me out. Okay, this one took me out because of course you're thinking Bermuda is a small island, it's promoted as an island, it's promoted as island living, and all of the things that's promoted about the country is 99% correct. What I feel like is not really said a lot is that they do have fall and winter like weather, so it does get cold here. You need to remember that Bermuda is not a part of the Caribbean. Those little chain, they're not a part of the Caribbean chain. Bermuda is actually in the middle of the Atlantic, right near the United States of America and also Canada. And so because of that, and because of where they are located geographically, they do get that winter fall like weather. They do also get hurricanes. So if you're someone you've never experienced hurricanes before, definitely if you're moving to Bermuda, it's something that you may experience throughout your time being here. You are going to get that storm weather. They do have a hurricane season, which is between June, I think, to November, very similar to the ones within the Caribbean. So when it comes to climate, the weather, you are going to also have to invest in clothes that is going to be suitable for the different types of seasons that they have, because I would say that they do experience all of the seasons. So it's something that you want to be mindful of. It's something that you want to factor into your cost. I didn't realize that it got cold, but it gets cold for me, someone who's an island girl, someone who's moving from Trinidad. When I got here, I was like, oh my gosh, this is reminding me of when I used to live in the US. Like, that is how cold it gets. So the next thing is a little bit about transportation. This one is the most frustrating for me, if I'm being honest. Bermuda doesn't allow car rentals per se. Like, you can't just go out and rent a car in Bermuda. If you are renting something, you're renting one of those little twiggy things. One of those electronic, very, very small vehicles. I will leave it up on the screen somewhere on the side. So that is basically what you would rent, and those can be very expensive. You can't come to Bermuda and rent an actual car. You can't lease a car here as well. Like, that is definitely something that they don't do. It is not allowed. Cars in Bermuda are also said to be very expensive to own. I guess the insurance and just like all of the things on actually getting a car is expensive. I haven't started the process of getting a car as yet, but when I do, I will definitely share it with you guys, because I'm going to need to get a car. You do have an option though to get a used vehicle, or you can get a new vehicle. It is recommended to buy a vehicle from an expat that's leaving, someone that's leaving the island, moving away from the island, because normally those cars are quote unquote better cars to get, so they say. But of course, you can buy cars from other people, and so if someone is leaving or someone is selling their car, definitely you can buy a second-hand car. And I think you do have an opportunity, once you've lived here long enough, to actually get a brand new car if it's something that you're interested in. Some people, they don't like second-hand cars, so hence the reason why I'm saying that, while others would be more interested in just buying something off of someone who maybe is getting a new vehicle. Most residents on the island though, they do have cars, or they will rely on the bus, because I now take the bus. And a lot of people have scooters. It's something that I definitely will not be doing. I'm a very clumsy girl. Also, there's a lot of accidents when it comes to scooters and stuff like that, and bicycles. So definitely it's not something that I'm interested in doing. I'm not trying to die on this island by someone hitting me down. And then you do have an option to take the bus. There's a bus schedule as well, so you don't really have to worry about transportation like that, because once you know what time the bus is passing the area that you're in, once it's not close to the city or it's not walking distance, you definitely can take the bus. It's an option. The buses are huge. They have AC in them. Well, some of the bus drivers keep the AC on. Some of them during the summertime, I don't know why the AC is not on. I took the bus the other day and the AC was not on, and I was very mad about that. But outside of that, majority of the time the bus is pretty normal. They have bus terminals, they have bus routes, they also have a schedule that you can look at, and since I've been here, the schedule has been on point. You can also use taxis. They do have an app called Hitch, which is like an Uber, but it's mainly taxi drivers, and I really like using Hitch. It is just expensive. So if it is that I'm going out, I know that I'm gonna spend about $25 to go somewhere, $25 to come back. It could get higher than that depending on where you're going. Like, I feel like when you're going to the airport and stuff like that, you definitely they definitely take the hitch. The hitch is going up. But you can also get like dedicated taxi drivers. Everyone is very helpful. Everyone is very open to helping, and so if you have a taxi driver that you work with or hire, they'll definitely pick you up. You can get their card information, and I find that running the meter is cheaper than taking a hitch. But there are instances where you can't find a taxi person and you can only get that person on Hitch. Hitch is also not very reliable sometimes, depending on where you live, because in different peak periods, taxi drivers are just not available because they're out making their their guap. And so in times like that, is where it's kind of difficult, but majority of the times you will get a hitch, especially if you're in town and you're looking to go home. You definitely get a hitch. And again, in certain times it's not as expensive to actually get one of those hitches or the Uber like thing. So yeah, so I'm gonna speak a little bit on education, simply because I don't know if people are gonna be moving here with their kids. So you do have an option to send your child to private school. So if it is that you are getting a job and you want to send your kid to private school, definitely remember there's gonna be a cost attached to that. So you want to consider all of those things as a part of your cost. They do have government schools here to which your child would be able to attend since you live here now, you're quote unquote a resident. And so they do have schools for your kids. But when you are moving here, remember that the Bermuda has a strong British influence, and so the curriculum will be along the lines of the British system. So banking and taxes. Bermuda does not have income tax, but there are other taxes that you should be aware of, such as payroll taxes or import duties, which can be high. That's a way in which they collect taxes to help, I guess, the country. But when it comes to like that income tax, definitely something that they do not have. The banking system is pretty modern-ish. Efficient, I'm not quite sure I could say that, but you do have an opportunity to open a bank account. Like, you are going to need a bank account. I think most companies pay direct deposit here, and so definitely it's something that you'd be able to do. They have two big banks, HSBC and Butterfield. You have an option to choose which bank you want to bank with. But I find that the process is a little bit dated. So the same requirements that you would need to open an account back home is the similar requirements that you're going to need to open an account here. The only difference is, I find when you open an account in Bermuda, you don't get your debit card on the same day, which is very mind-blowing to me, because the banking system is supposed to be so efficient. You don't get your debit card on the same day. You have to wait a couple days or like a week to get your debit card. One thing I will say though, with Butterfield, you get your account details like the next day or the same day once the CSR would have opened the account. So that is definitely something that you want to consider. The banking is not quote unquote immediate. In my opinion, I found it to be a little bit dated when I came and I opened an account and I had to wait. But you do have once all of that is set up and done, then you can just bank as normal. I've never had any issues with any banking. I've never had any issues with the banks that I have opened accounts here with. And so once your bank account is set up and all of that good stuff, you are legit good to go. Also, one of the things that I really like with the banks here, they spit out US at the airport, so you do have an opportunity if you are traveling to just, when you get to the airport, just take the money out of it. Like, you don't have to go through a lot of red tape when it comes to getting US in Bermuda. You can also spend US here and you can get back US as well. So that is one of the things that I really love about their whole banking system on island. Final thing to note before moving to Bermuda is the fact that Bermuda is a small island. Bermuda is beautiful, 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 but it is small, and so sometimes it can feel like you're isolated when you get here, especially if you're coming from a fast-paced environment. If you're coming from a fast-paced environment, then the island is going to quickly slow you down. There's a lot of different activities that you can do. If you're someone that loves the outdoorsy type of activities, you definitely can sign up to different groups and join those activities. I'm not one of those girlies, so the isolation is a bit much, but I do find myself going out sometimes. But I want to mention this because it's just important to know that, and to prepare your mind and to prepare yourself for that island living versus larger cities or even larger islands. Because I came from Trinidad and that was island living, but it was a different type of island living. And finally, sometimes you want to go out and do stuff or travel out. So traveling to and from the island can be quite expensive. So you want to be mindful of that depending on where you're trying to go. I think the tickets to New York are pretty, to me, they're pretty reasonable. And sometimes it can be very limited depending on the different types of season. So when there's off season, it's said to be harder to leave the island, or you have less flights coming in and out, or the different types of routes may change. So it's definitely something that you want to be mindful of. But I would say if you're gonna move to Bermuda, be open about it, be open-minded. So I hope this video was very helpful for you guys. I really wanted to do this video because I do get a lot of questions about Bermuda. People are very interested as to them wanting to move to Bermuda, but there's a lot of things that you need to consider when you are deciding to move to a new country. And I think that these tips would be very helpful to anyone. Again, not even if you're not moving to Bermuda, but you're moving to a new country. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you guys in my next upload. Bye.